Welcome everybody, SF Live, episode 61. Happy Monday everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm joined in a couple minutes here, or a couple seconds actually, by Fernando Ganoza, CEO of Atico Mining. He's joined by Igor Dutina. He's VP Corp Dev for Atico Mining as well. But before we get to your questions, before we get talking about what's been happening at Atico since their last interview with us on April 22nd, quick reminder, use hashtag AskATY here on Twitter for your questions during our live stream and chat with management. Also, make sure to follow us on YouTube. We'll be uploading this video afterwards. Subscribe to our channel. That way you get alerts whenever we upload the latest video in case you miss our live sessions. Also, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Instagram as well. We really appreciate that, and any feedback is always welcome. Now, let me switch over to the gentleman here. Fernando, Igor, thanks for joining us today. How is everybody doing today?
Hi, Kai. Thank you for having us. On my side, I'm doing fantastic.
Fantastic. Igor, you're in Vancouver. Fernando, you're in Panama. You haven't been traveling much, or none of us have. So why don't we start with a quick update? Like we've chatted April 22nd a little more extensively about El Roble and the operations in Panama, but we got some exciting news, or you guys got some exciting news last week that we should definitely cover. But let's catch up on let's fill our listeners in sort of what happened the last couple of weeks, or last 2 months actually, or last 2.5 months. So before we go into detail.
Sure. Sounds great, Kai. Let's start with El Roble in Colombia. El Roble has been operating steady state throughout the COVID-19 crisis. Of course, we have been operating under a very strict protocol that's been regulated by local authorities, with operating with less personnel, postponing some of the initiatives we had, but production has been as planned. So I believe from that perspective, El Roble is doing very well. Exploration got delayed a little bit at the beginning. Now we have 3 rigs on site working as we speak. So that's, from that perspective, we're also good. Now, La Plata, we are drilling. We have 2 rigs on site. We're infilling the known mineralization, and we're also trying to extend it along strike and at depth. And with that, we can jump into more information on what the results that we've just recently put out mean for us as we have started drilling the resource.
Fantastic. Let's go through it chronologically, because we chatted April 22nd. You put out some financials on May 20th. Let's talk about those first. But let's start with the bad news, I call them, before we get to the good news.
Yeah, sure. I don't think it's bad news, but I'll address it for sure. So a couple of things happened during Q1, and we showed a net loss. And the 3 things that happened were, one, their shipment got delayed to Q2. So we only had a very small shipment, 7,000 tons, when we're usually shipping over 10,000 per quarter. That was one, so a smaller shipment. The second one is that copper prices plunged during the first quarter of the year, as we all know, and that also hit us. Now, with those two, even with those two, we would have shown a profit in the first quarter. But the third thing that happened is what actually put us in a net loss, and it's that we still had open shipments from 2019 that weren't closed, so they were registered the current price when we shipped, but we had to make a mark-to-market adjustment given the price in Q1, and that was over a 2 million adjustment, a negative adjustment that we had to make, and that's what actually put it at a negative loss. Without that adjustment, we would have shown a profit. Now, in my mind, in my way to explain it, is that adjustment is really an adjustment that corresponds to 2019 profits. It's close to $7 million in 2019. If we make the adjustment, we will be close to 5. So 5 million of profits in 2019, and then we will have shown a profit in Q1. But because the way you have to account for it, actually we put in effect when it affected Q1, and that means we had to show a loss there.
Yeah. Now, one thing we briefly talked about off record here as well when while we were setting up here is we chatted briefly about like because it's not a new thing for you guys that your deliveries get pushed into other quarters. It happens. It's just a timing thing, right? That you don't advise or guide the market sort of in that effect. And you promised betterment. Can you briefly like mention that? Maybe that's one for Igor as it comes down to press releases.
Yeah, so in the past, Kai, thank you for that question. We've always juggled including some of that information or not, and the reason why we elected not to is because those numbers typically change when you account for the final settlements. So we elected to wait until the financial results and those numbers were closed, if you will, until we have the final numbers, and then we would disclose. But perhaps, given that we are seeing feedback from the market saying, well, no, it's okay, just share with us, even if it's the preliminary numbers, it's fine. Just give us a little bit of foresight from that perspective. No problem. We're going to look into exactly that so that we can have a little bit more information out there, and people are not surprised one way or the other once the final settlements are done.
Yeah, because you're selling to traffic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fernando.
I was just going to add to what Igor was saying that as we register revenue when we ship, and that is settled or closed some months after we ship, looking on a quarter-to-quarter basis can be tricky. So I advise investors to understand the position of the company in terms of revenue and profits, to also look at our cash cost, right? Because our cash cost will also indicate how we did that quarter relative to the price we were selling at. For instance, in Q1, our cash cost was close to $1.20 per pound of copper, and our all-in sustaining cash cost was close to $1.84. We show an accounting loss. Just looking at the cash cost will give you a sense that we are still generating free cash, even we had to take an accounting hit, an adjustment of $2 million.
No, that's a very good point. And like just to come back to what Igor said, like you're selling to Trafigura, so people understand that there's certain payment terms that take a while and might not be accounted for in this certain quarter. So since we're talking about financials, you're due any day now for Q2 financials. Or production numbers. Sorry, production numbers. Is there anything we can talk about first about the production results from Q2? Is like any impacts from COVID or anything?
I don't think so, Kai. As I mentioned, we have been able to maintain production. I think Q2 results are going to be aligned with the guideline we gave for the year. So far, we've been able to have a good first half of the year in terms of production.
Fantastic. No, that's all we can ask for, and Igor, you'll fill us in on terms of news flow later on. But I'm sure you're going to talk about production results and maybe some guidance on deliveries off concentrate as well. Well, gentlemen, let's get to the good news. We've covered the seemingly bad news because you showed a net loss. But let's talk about the very, very good drill results from La Plata in Ecuador.
Sure. I'll start by saying that we have a 10,000 meter program at La Plata for this year. Most of that is going to be infill and step-out drilling, looking to continue to test continuity of mineralization along strike and at depth. There are a couple of new zones also that we want to test that we think are highly prospective and are relatively close to the known current mineralization. So we've drilled so far close to 50% of the drill campaign. We only have a set of holes that have returned from the lab. We're waiting for the second one, and the third one is on its way to the lab. So from here, I'll say we'll have a steady rate of news flow in terms of drill results from La Plata. So far, we are very excited with the first batch that we put out, mainly because those holes were directed to contact zone limits of the mineralized lenses, and the results that have come back are very encouraging, in both in terms of hydration and potentially adding tons to the lenses, and also in terms of the grade. So we were showing grades that correspond to stock work, alteration zones, limits, and even though it's very high grade. So I believe that these results so far are very encouraging, and as we migrate resources from inferred to measured and indicated, there's potential to not only perhaps maintain tons, but also increase tons.
Fantastic. I love how you're non-promotional. You guys put some really, really good results out, in my opinion. And I'm not a geo or anything, right? So take everything with a bit of grain of salt. But when I hear intercepts of 70.8 grams of gold and 1.1 kilos of silver and 8.9% of zinc over close to a meter, and if you extrapolate that even further, it's like there's still good results. So Igor, it's like you wanted to mention something. You wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add to that you know, the fact that this is in the contact zones, which are typically, and we see this in El Roble, for example, are known to be lower grade areas, you know, and these are the grades that were returned. We're very excited to see the higher grade zones, if you will, that we're looking for. On top of that, you know, we're very excited to see the extent of where this mineralization is going to go. Fernando mentioned some of the holes that we have in this program are going to be testing in the vicinity. And as you know, the value of this ton of ore is very high, of this mineralization is very high. And, you know, anything we can discover additionally to what we already have is a tremendous addition to the bottom line. And, you know, as everybody might be aware, we're working towards a feasibility study here as well. So we're going to be trying to summarize the economics and the potential of this deposit in the short term. So, you know, anything we can add to that, we think is going to be tremendous value. And you know, I think it really is going to speak to the evaluation of the company, where it is today versus where it can be, if the results are what we're expecting.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Like 10,000 meter drill program, you released the first 6 holes just now. It was last week. What's in the lab right now? How many holes are completed?
So we're going to have potentially another press release coming out soon with the next tranche. We're still reconciling some numbers with the labs in terms of how many holes we're going to put out. So depending on how fast the labs get back to us, we'll decide what the next batch of results is going to be. But we'll have at least another 2 press releases, if not more, in the coming weeks. And on top of the other regular press releases that we're anticipating in terms of production results, financial results. And of course, if we're very fortunate, we are drilling at El Roble. So, you know, hitting there or an extent at the current mining area would be phenomenal. So.
Fantastic. Fernando, you wanted to mention something as well. I saw your mouth open and then Igor jumped in. So you got something to add there?
No, I was just going to say that even though the initial program is for 10,000 meters, we anticipate and expect that will be added to as we move along, right? We anticipate that the initial infill program is going to open up other areas to us, or the interesting areas that will justify continued drilling. That's our expectation, and that's what we're seeing in these first holes. So again, we're very encouraged about it. And perhaps we believe that we'll have a continuous flow of drill holes for this year, which I think is going to be very good in terms of the market under what we have at La Plata, why we thought La Plata was a good addition to Roble, why we thought it was a great asset to have in terms of grade and potential.
Fantastic. Like, when do you expect the completion of the drill program? When are you going to make a decision? When are you going to start looking into maybe adding more meters to it? What's the timeline on that for a decision?
So we should complete the 10,000 meters somewhere between the end of the third quarter and beginning of the fourth. And of course, depending on the results, then we'll decide how many more meters. But I anticipate that most likely we're going to drill continuously till year end.
Okay. Fantastic. Let's talk about, like Igor, you hinted at it, like upcoming news flow, marketing efforts as well. Obviously, you've hit a very nice gold and silver intercept here with some zinc as well. What are the plans moving forward? How are you going to ride the wave of these results?
Well, I mean, the goal is going to be to ensure that we inform everybody that we can what we're seeing here. I think that the deposit deserves that. Our investors and potential future investors deserve that. So the plan is to get very aggressive and to capitalize as much as we can on the results. And also, you know, given the fact we are limited to traveling, limited with traveling, we are going to be focused mostly virtually. We're going to be attending a couple of virtual conferences. We're going to be at the Beaver Creek Conference, of course. We have a presentation at the Paradigm Copper Conference tomorrow. We're going to be, we're also looking at the London 1-to-1 or the Global 1-to-1 that they're calling, and others that we're considering at this moment. On the back of that, we're going to be doing much more of these interviews that we're doing right now. But also, you know, we're going to do some non-deal roadshows as well, virtual ones, to get the story out to the institutional clients as well, where we think, you know, the growth potential of this company is headed. So it's going to be a couple of different approaches that we're going to try to.
Fantastic. And Laurentian Bank has a target price of 65 cents on you guys. And what kind of copper price did they use? Like we're still lots of upside. They're still close to 50% upside left in their target price. But I think, remembering reading their research, they used a lot lower copper price for that evaluation. Can give us an idea there?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're working on updating their metal prices. I mean, it was very difficult for anyone to foresee this run up in copper. You know, most of the consensus, even the S&P consensus, was, I think, 250 or 260 into Q3 and 4 of this year. I don't think anybody anticipated copper going to $3. And so a lot of the analysts in the base metal space are updating their books now. I don't know what they're going to ultimately decide on in terms of what future prices they're going to use, but we think it should be favorable to us, given that yes, they have based their target price on a lower copper and gold price. Now, on top of that, the La Plata value that was assigned, from what I can extrapolate from looking at the target price breakdown, was on the lower end, and that there's upside there as well. So the analyst has taken a conservative approach and has asked, you know, for us to beat his expectations, and we're taking that challenge full on.
No, fantastic! Like the results brought some excitement back to the story. You guys moved nicely from 30 cents to now 44, 45 cents today. There are more eyeballs on the story. And Fernando, sorry, I keep talking.
Just to add once again to what Igor is saying, the NPV value on La Plata under the preliminary economic analysis, of course, depending on what discount rate you use, was about 50 million US back then when it came out. If we use the current prices for that same analysis, you'll be closer to 80 or 90 million. And so right now, the company valuation in the market is reflecting mainly the value of the future cash flows for El Roble mine. It's really not giving much value to La Plata. And I believe as we move La Plata forward, de-risk it and get it closer to a construction decision, the market is gonna pick up on that gap. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. Also, if the results that we are going to start putting out also contribute to making it for a stronger resource with a lot more certainty, I think that's also going to contribute to adding more value even to the La Plata NPV. And I want to mention also, Kai, to your audience, that we have paired up with G Mining. G Mining, a reputable company that worked on the feasibility study of the Lundin Fruta del Norte, and also worked in the construction. We have paired up with them for the feasibility study at La Plata. So I believe their experience, their reputation, and their local knowledge after delivering the Fruta del Norte, coupled with our experience as operators, given that we developed and operate La Plata at a very similar rate, it's going to be very powerful in terms of delivering a very nice project with a lot of potential. So I think that's worthwhile also mentioning.
No, fantastic. And then when do you expect the feasibility study or the updated feasibility study coming out for La Plata?
So we had an initial date that was in late 2021, early 2022. Now that we are analyzing and how the current situation is going to delay that schedule. So we don't have a date right now, but we should have one soon.
Okay. No, that's understandable. Perfect. Gentlemen, we talked about most things. I think we covered all the catalysts coming up. So, Igor, if you just want to put a bow around it for us and just summarize like what the next 3 months bring for you guys, then I think we're golden.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Kai, and thank you for all the great questions. The bottom line is this is a self-financed exploration story that has tremendous upside at both assets. We're clearly showing that upside with the recent results at La Plata, and we hope that that's going to continue in the coming news flow that we're anticipating. And we think there's still a disconnect between our evaluation and what we actually have here, especially looking at some of the other evaluations of companies that are nowhere near as advanced as we are. I mean, we are producing, we are generating cash. So I think overall, this is a story that's due for a re-rating. And we're hoping that the progress that we're planning to make this year will get us to that goal.
Fantastic. No, gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for the update. I think it was due after all the news you put out and the great drill results. So looking forward to some more of those. And in the meantime, everybody, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching here on Twitter. We will be uploading this interview to YouTube in due course, so follow us there as well. Make sure you turn on the notification, that little bell button. That way you get alerted whenever we go live. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk very soon again. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.